Major funding for Loaded Gun was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Additional funding was provided by the Massachusetts Foundation for the Humanities, the Rhode Island Committee for the Humanities, and the Leff Foundation.
So I had this dream last night. I was coaching a baseball team. It's a really tight game. They got a runner on first, and their best hitters at the plate. Someone taps me on the shoulder. I turn around, and there's Emily Dickinson. And she tells me she wants to play. Now I figure she's probably not much of a ball player, but you know, this is Emily Dickinson, and I can't figure out a way to say no to her. So I give her a glove and send her out to second base. On the next pitch, the guy on first breaks for second, and it looks like he's going to try to take out Emily. But she sidesteps him and slaps on the tag like a pro. And I remember thinking in my dream, here's this woman who spent most of her life shut up in her house, writing poems and baking bread. How'd she ever learn to play second base like that?
You look at that little daguerreotype when she was 16 or 17, and you say, that way she sat in those eyes looking out at you, she was a powerful soul.
My life had stood a loaded gun in corners till a day the owner passed, identified, and carried me away. And now we roam in sovereign woods, and now we hunt the doe, and every time I speak for him, the mountains straight reply. And do I smile, such cordial light, upon the valley glow? It is as a Vesuvian face had let its pleasure through.
If you don't understand this poem, join the club. I must have read it hundreds of times, and I still can't figure it out, but I can't seem to get the lines out of my head. My life had stood a loaded gun.
None stir the second time, on whom I lay a yellow eye, or an emphatic thumb.
Though I than he may longer live, he longer must than I, for I have but the power to kill, without the power to die.
Life and death and giants such as these are still, minor apparatus, hopper of the mill.
She wrote 1,789 poems in all, and today, Emily Dickinson is ranked among the greatest poets of the English language.
Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies.
Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all.
To make a prairie, it takes a clover and one bee, one clover and a bee and reverie. The reverie alone will do if bees are few.
So how did this woman, who was apparently too sensitive to go out in the world, write about the world with such power and precision and presence? I've been trying to answer that question with a film. I started out using a standard documentary approach. I interviewed poets, scholars, performers, and biographers. I collected archival prints and photographs, added some period music, and recruited a narrator to tie it all together.
Emily Dickinson, American poet. Born on December 10, 1830, she lived her entire life in the western Massachusetts town of Amherst, where she died on May 15, 1886.
She was in a privileged class. She lived in what they call the mansion. She didn't have to work if she didn't want to work. She didn't have to get married if she didn't want to get married.
Known as a recluse rather than a poet during her lifetime, Dickinson was completely homebound by her mid-30s. Dressing always in white, and seeing only a handful of relatives and close friends, she filled her days with household chores, a voluminous correspondence, and the writing of close to 2,000 poems.
I see her in the letters and the poems. I see her gathering the language around her, as a kind of protective cloak.
She chose to sing because she was afraid.
So what was she afraid of? I asked 3 psychotherapists to try and put the poet on the couch.
I know, first off, she wouldn't like me, but she wouldn't like many people anyway.
She chooses to live for her purposes in a coffin.
She oscillates between wanting intense closeness or wanting intense distance.
For production value, I juxtapose quotes from the poet's letters with some artsy nature shots.
My business is circumference and ignorance not of customs, but if caught with the dawn or the sunset see me, myself the only kangaroo among the beauty.
I persuaded a band to try out some Dickinson rock and roll.
My life stood loaded, gone in corners till a day.
For color, I included an artist who uses the poet's words in unique ways.
I mean, I had sucked in her words so that they had now become part of me, so that I could now use it also.
A sensitive, tuning into Dickinson's past lives.
I was meditating and looking at Emily Dickinson, and I can see her in a life in the past as a Buddhist monk, where she felt her sensitivity and her depth was genuinely understood.
I filmed an actress who greets customers at a hotel brunch in character as Emily Dickinson.
Good day.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm Miss Dickinson. And who are you?
And I even included this guy.
Well, I wanted a back piece. I wanted a large back piece. Why I wanted that, that's hard to know, but I did. I wanted it to be something that was an expression of something closer to my heart. One fine day, a postcard with Emily Dickinson's image fell out of a book, and the rest was history.
But despite all this material, my central character was not coming into focus for me. Nothing I tried seemed to be giving me a real sense of who this woman was. So I went to a couple of English professor friends for advice. Dr. Powers was pessimistic. Dr. Perkins was puzzled.
Film is about abundance. It's a delusion, it's delusive abundance, but Dickinson is about denial, about being kept from abundance. And how do you film that?
What I want to know is what it is specifically about her that is enthralling to you. If it is the origin of her genius and the nature of her genius that you want direct contact with, or if it is the poetry, it's the products of her genius.
What I really wanted to do was to solve the mystery of how this sheltered 19th century spinster was able to produce poetry that still seems ahead of the times in the 21st century.
The riddle we can guess, we speedily despise. Not anything is stale so long as yesterday's surprise.
That's when I started thinking that I might have a better shot at solving the Dickinson riddle if I dropped the documentary approach and tried the Hollywood route instead. But then the question becomes, who do you get to play Emily? I mean, the rest of the family would be easy to cast.
Edward Dickinson, lawyer, congressman, an attentive but emotionally distant father.
For this role, I'd go with Charlton Heston.
Emily Norcross Dickinson. The poet said of her, "My mother does not care for thought."
She may not appreciate being typecast, but I'd try to hire Gene Stapleton.
Sister Lavinia, Emily's acid-tongued protector.
And she was also a great mimic. How about Tracy Ullman?
And Brother Austin, lawyer, civic leader, on the surface much like his father, but with a wild side.
You know, I think it's about time for Kevin Spacey to do a period piece. But you know, no one seems to fit for the leading lady.